Hello. Welcome to Up Close and Personal with me, Steve Balich.
Our friends. Bobby Russell's been in office since like 92, and he's done nothing but rape and pillage the black community. That's a Democrat. Go to the 7th district. Danny Davis, same thing. Those are the Democrats. Vote straight Republican. Straight Republican.
You have to understand that this was created by design. This was created through policy. You know, this is the Chicago way, as they always say. You know, we joke and we laugh about it, but this is the result of the Chicago way. This is a result of Chicago politics. The fact that you have a group of people who create a political issue and then you have to go through them in order to solve it. You can't park on your street because it costs so much. You know, it costs $100 plus to get a city sticker. It's relentless, the taxes, the regulation, the things you can and can't do, how you have to go to your alderman just to get relief when it's a problem they created. And then you end up beholden to them to vote for them over and over again because they dangle a carrot over you. You know,
and that is going to be our guest, Devin Jones. You know, Devin, you're a very interesting person, and I'm curious, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a Southside neighborhood, really Southwest city, called Ashburn, around 83rd and Pulaski, in between Pulaski and Kedzie. If anybody, you know, it's in the city, we say our neighborhood's by parish, so I grew up in St. Dennis Parish, just adjacent to Tommy Moore. And my parents were originally married, but for most of my childhood, I was raised by my mother, a single parent, who worked 3 jobs to support me, educate me, and really make me the man I am today.
So can you tell us a little bit about your background, you know, how you got started?
So I've been doing politics since I was 7. My mother used to take me canvassing starting around that age for different politicians that she was supporting at the time in Chicago. So that's how I learned how to canvass. By the time I was in 2nd grade, I can remember my teacher asking us all what we wanted to do when we grew up. And I said I wanted to be the president of Cook County. And so that, you know, that's like a weird job for a 2nd grader to want to do. Around that time was when the sheriffs were in that blue flu. I don't know if listeners remember that. That was way back in like 1992 when the sheriff's department wasn't treating the deputies right, and they went on like a blue flu, and I thought I was gonna grow up and become the president of Cook County to fix it because my mother was a sheriff. And then just throughout my high school, throughout grade school and high school, I was always involved in student council. I was always involved in different type of, I guess you call them activist groups, Catholic schools opposing racism, just various different things to stay engaged in the community. I did junior achievement throughout my high school. I was actually a teacher in junior achievement. So when I got out of high school and entered college, I was huge in the pro-life movement, organizing communities on the south side of Chicago. I was a sidewalk counselor at the abortion clinic on the Salem Division in Chicago for a while, helping mostly black men choose life, and if they weren't able to choose life because, you know, it's a woman's choice, I would counsel them into what they could do to prevent something from like that from ever happening to them again. I was a Catholic school teacher for a while. I took in 2 of my homeless students and put them through grade school, high school, and they are now graduating from college. And I joined the military to take care of them. So I had to stop teaching in the Catholic school system. And I spent 4 years in the United States Navy as a master at arms, which is like the military police operation of the Navy. And When I got out, I did prison reentry ministry, so I saw what happens when bad policy, how bad policy can affect communities, create criminalization, literally create criminals.
So what's your feeling about what J.B. Pritzker did to everybody with the Safety Act taking into effect January 1st, waiting till after the election?
Not to harp too much on race, but the fact that this act black people were used to pass this act, the E in safety stands for equity, and it was on the back of black people that used the Black Caucus in the state legislature to pass it. Many of those people are people that represent me. I think it's terrible. I think this law is terrible. Now, there are some good things in it that have already taken effect, things that are really kind of inconsequential. Police body cams, the way that they do the census when it comes to prisons and stuff like that, things that we were already doing that don't create a criminal element in the community, but this pretrial fairness portion of it, or what they call pretrial fairness, is just egregious, because for those of us who live in the city, especially on the south and west sides, we are going to be stuck with the criminal element that we can't get rid of, and there'll be no consequences. 48 hours before the police actually apprehend someone that is really a fugitive from law that has terrorized one of either the community I live in or a community adjacent to us. It really is almost like a crime against humanity, what they've done, and the way that they've racialized it and put it on the backs of African Americans is just appalling to me.
Devin, I heard where you come from, and I know that's Chicago. So what motivates you to keep on going and keep on fighting when, if you're a Republican in Chicago, the perception, I'm not saying it's the reality, but perception is that Republicans are no good. So what makes you keep pushing to move forward?
I love my community. I love my neighborhood. My entire family lives on the south side of Chicago. I grew up there. And so that love for my neighbors, for my family, is what really keeps me going. And it is a perception that Republicans are not viewed well, and we can easily change that. When we actually knock on these doors, when we visit our neighbors, when we walk through these communities, they don't have a problem with me calling myself a Republican. They actually embrace it. The problem is that some of our brothers and sisters are not knocking on doors, and they do the social media thing. But if we're not present at community meetings, if we're not present in our neighborhood, if we're not, as the model that we borrow from you, fix where we live, if we're not fixing where we live, which is boots on the ground, then the other side gets to tell a narrative about us because we're absent. And so that's also what keeps me going, is that really wanting to fix where I live, really having a love for my neighbors, for my family, for my community, and also wanting to keep the generational wealth that has been worked for from my family. I want to keep that. I don't want to give it away. I'm not running away.
Devin, I know you're running for alderman, and I'm glad you are, because you're a terrific candidate. And I'm just curious, when's the election, and are you out campaigning, and are people receiving you in a good way?
So the election for Chicago is February 28th. Right now I'm in the petition phase, so I'm collecting enough petitions to be on the ballot. My goal is to get at least 3 times what the minimum is. And when I go out, people are receptive. They are not happy with the political establishment in Chicago. Almost at least 60% of the people are not happy with the current alderman. I haven't met one person who likes what our mayor is doing in the city or outside of the city. So I think I have a chance. I think this is something new. A lot of the people, it's refreshing, that's what they tell me, to see somebody from the neighborhood who grew up in the neighborhood wanting to represent the neighborhood. I'm not politically connected, so that's a plus. I think people are excited when they see a neighbor running. You know, right now we have a political class that just kind of imposes on us. And so for the first time, at least in my lifetime in the 18th ward, we have somebody in me that's running that is just a regular citizen, just a regular guy from the neighborhood.
Well, Devin, I'm in election cycle too, and I'm seeing the need to get everyone out to vote. It's so important. What are you doing to get people out to vote, and what's your opinion
Of
about
course,
it?
we all are in that get out the vote season. I think that voting is the most important thing that we can do as Americans. I mean, every 2 years and in some cases every year, we get to create a whole revolution in this country if we so choose. So if you don't vote, everything that governs your life is out of your hands, from your mayor to your alderman to the schools that your children go to your township supervisor as you are. I mean, there is nothing more sacrosanct in being an American than voting. So being registered to vote is important, actually casting that vote, but also being an informed voter is important, not just going in and straight party tickets or somebody told you to vote for someone. We need to do our due diligence and be educated about who exactly we're voting for.
I know a lot about politics, so do you. But one of the biggest problems we have is, how do you tell if a person that's running for office is actually going to be good for the community, or if they're all about their own agenda?
For me, I'm a Christian, so that plays a part. Discernment is huge. People of faith, I think tapping into that discernment, really praying about a person, getting their spirit and their energy. So a part of that is having to go out and meet these people. I think the other thing is, we as voters need to have a working knowledge of policy, which a lot of voters unfortunately don't, so that you can ask relevant questions. Because see, what happens is, we ask these questions like, what are you gonna do for me? And they give this broad-based, just bullet points or talking points. And so when somebody gives you a talking point, you have to know enough to delve deeper than that talking point. I believe in healthcare for all. Okay, so what does that mean for me when it comes to taxes? What does that mean for me when I say that government is corrupt and now government's going to get into healthcare? In any of these different areas, you have to know what the office the person is running for, what does it actually entail. So an alderman shouldn't be telling you things that your U.S. senator is going to tell you. Your U.S. senator should not be running on things that a state rep is running on. And so we have to know what the office is, what they're actually running for, what are the policies that actual office can affect. Is it a legislative office? Is it a judge? So a judge is not going to tell you about the school board, but a judge can talk about elections to a certain extent. A judge can talk about how they're going to adjudicate criminal justice proceedings or family law, things like that. Who they're going to vote for chief judge. That's one of our issues in Cook County, is that we have a chief judge, a state's attorney, and a mayor that are all in cahoots to just let criminals out of jail and let them out on the street. So you have to know what the office is, what policy it actually it affects, and then go beyond the talking points of what these politicians are talking about. Go to the heart of how these policies are going to affect you, your family, and the community.
I'm listening to you talk, and one thing we didn't touch on is, why do they think it's okay to let everybody out of jail, and they don't even consider the consequences of this?
Unfortunately, this is a symptom of one-party rule, when only one group of people of like mind are at the table, and there's no back and forth, there's no talk about the consequences. The other thing is, in Cook County, this is not to disparage any conservatives or Republicans, but on the Cook County side of things, we haven't done a good job of telling our narrative or being present in the community. So what happened was, there were issues where the Chicago Police Department and other police departments were abusing people's rights. I believe it was Donald Trump's Justice Department that actually issued violations of Fifth Amendment rights and different things like that Chicago police had done in the past. And so instead of actually tackling those issues, which did not require bail reform, it didn't require many of the things that we've seen, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, it literally required removing bad cops from the police force. and maybe revamping some of the training, giving money for additional training, things like that. They just decided to totally revamp the criminal justice system. But the problem is that criminal politicians can't revamp a criminal justice system. So if they were going to do that, they should have revamped the judicial system, because we have a lot of corrupt judges. Otherwise, these people would not, if somebody had their rights violated by law enforcement and the judge was able to sentence them, that means the entire process was flawed. This Safety Act doesn't remedy any of that. It just gives more power to the same people who were violating these people's rights. And so I think that's just what it was, a group of people who decided, they're all of like mind, they just decided to revamp something without any opposition, without caring what the consequences were. And it's just not good.
What do you think of this stupid, and literally stupid idea of defunding the police and pretty much eliminating law?
Yeah. The defund the police movement, coupled with the Safety Act, you know, these are all kind of lies that the left has told. So for instance, they said we need to defund the police. Nobody in their right mind actually believes that we need to defund the police, because if something happens to me, I need the police. I need them to be funded. I need them to have body armor. I need them to have a gun. I need them to have a proper uniform, nice patrol vehicle to chase a person that violate. So and they know that too, which is why they spoke a lot about defunding the police, but they never actually did it. They poured more money into the police department, but it never made it down to the B cops. It never made it down to the cops that patrol the streets in Chicago. It's somewhere in the administrative level. It went to contracts for body cams, for instance. It went to things like the red light cameras. It's almost like money laundering what they've done with this stuff. On the one hand, they're saying defund the police, but they gave the police departments more money, but the resources were not put to reducing crime, which is a problem. What the Democrat establishment in Chicago is doing is just killing us. Literally, it's causing us to be killed and to die in that city. When it comes to, and this is the other thing why I believe that the words that they use, we should start adopting. When they say things like food deserts, when they say things like criminal justice reform, when they say things like equity, we need to take those words back. The Safety Act is not equitable. I don't know how that levels the playing field between black and white people by letting criminals back out into black neighborhoods to kill the very black people that are actually raising property value, the very black people that are actually trying to educate their children, the very black people that are actually trying to create generational wealth and close whatever this racial wealth gap is that they say we have. I can't think of a Democrat that we can even vote for at this point in time. I can't think of, in going forward, I stopped voting Democrat a long time ago. I think probably about 2008. I think Obama was still president when I stopped voting Democrat. And actually, the funny story to that is I've always kind of done a split ticket thing. Well, in the past, I would do like a split ticket because I would research different candidates. And outside of my polling place, I walked in there one time, and one of the alderman's little employees was passing out like a voting guide, a Democrat voting guide. And I never take that stuff because I don't need it. I'm just gonna throw it in the trash. So I said no. And the man starts yelling at me, cussing at me and everything just because I wouldn't take his vote guide. And so it caused me to yell out to him, I'm not a Democrat. So I wouldn't even take that. And it was just out of anger. That's how I started voting Democrat, because this man was cussing me out because I wouldn't take his Democrat voting guide. And just to spite him, he had gone into the inside of the polling place, talked to the election judges, so then they start treating me bad. So I told him, give me a Republican ballot. First I said, I'll take an independent ballot. And then one of the election judges told me, you're just throwing your vote away. I said, well, I'll throw it all away. Give me a Republican ballot. So she said no, and we got into this, it was an argument back and forth. Finally, they gave me the Republican ballot. And that's kind of the story of how I started voting Republican.
I mean, I expected you to say a lot of stuff. But you said that a poll watcher in a polling place broke the law by handing out election material. Then you asked for a Republican ballot, first the independent, but then a Republican, and they don't want to give it to you, and you got to fight with them?
Norm. I mean, all my life that's been the norm. Even now, when I visit polling places, now that I'm a committeeman, sometimes we have to tell them to open up to actually unwrap Republican ballots because they don't even have them unwrapped. They just take for granted, especially in the black community, in majority black communities, they just take for granted that we're going to vote Democrat. And when you don't, I guess it's such a shock, like we don't have control over what you're doing. And so you do have to fight with them. That's why I think it's so important for the Republican committeemen in the city to visit your polling place regularly. If early voting is going on for 2 weeks, you need to be popping in and out of that place because otherwise they do what they want to do to these people. And most of us don't know election law. In my mind, this is the election judge. They have authority. I mean, I knew enough because of what my parents had instilled in me and being in this process since about the age of 7 that I get whatever ballot I ask you for, and that's just it. But most people don't know that. If you hand them a Democrat thing, they're gonna walk in there and say, I want a Democrat ballot because I gotta vote for these people, and they're gonna punch it. If they trust you and you're Republican, you hand them something, they're gonna go with whoever you say, which is why we need informed voters. But the political establishment in Chicago, which is Democrat, has so dumbed down and intimidated the entire election process that most people don't even know what their rights are concerning voting.
I know you were in the military, and I know you probably voted. So was there a difference between voting in the military and voting in Chicago?
So the first time I voted, actually, I was in boot camp, stationed at Great Lakes, and they mailed in the ballot. Oddly enough, they claimed that they didn't get the ballot in enough time to check the ballot. So if you look at my military service and my voting record, it looks like I didn't vote most of the time because all the ballots that I requested when I was sending them back, I either wouldn't get the ballots or when I was sending them back, there was always some type of strange issue with the Board of Elections. And so, like in the last mayoral race, I did an absentee ballot. They claim they never got it. I don't know how that happens. So I would say, is there a difference? I don't want to say the Board of Elections is corrupt in Chicago. I don't know what the issue is. I think there's less intimidation because I got the ballot in the mail. But the problem is that almost none of my ballots that I mailed back were counted.
How do you know that your ballot wasn't counted?
So the first ballot that wasn't counted was in 2014 for that general election that year. They sent me an email saying in late November that they weren't counted. I wish I had kept the email. I wasn't even thinking about it at the time. I was just so disgusted with the process that I just didn't worry about it. But you can check your voter record with the election authority, whether it's the county clerk in suburban Cook County and outside of Cook County, or the Chicago Board of Elections. And now that I'm a committeeman in checking, GOP data center and different things like that, checking my own election history, I can see where there are these gaps where there was an election. I know I requested a ballot, mailed in a ballot, but it doesn't say that they received anything and that anything is counted.
7, now when a voter walks into the polling place, what should they be thinking about before they vote?
So my hope is that they know their constitutional rights. That's first and foremost, and you should be looking at a candidate that's going to protect those, because that's the main purpose of government, is to protect those rights, freedoms, privileges, and immunities we have as American citizens. I think the next thing they should be looking at, is a person telling you what the government's going to do for you, because that means government's going to do something to you? Or is the person allowing the government to back off of you and you to be freed up to do what you know you're supposed to do within your household, right? The government is not our mommy, it's not our daddy, it's not the government is not supposed to provide for us, because the government is we the people. You don't provide everything for your neighbor. I don't provide everything for the person who lives across the street from me. That's in their household. So somebody that said, we're gonna make a new program. Well, I gotta do something to you to make a new program if I'm government. I gotta take something out of your wallet. You have to open that wallet up, swipe a credit card, because you got some taxes to pay. So the more someone says, I'm gonna do something for you, that means they're gonna do something to you. So anybody like that, you probably wanna stay away from. You wanna gravitate towards people and issues, because we have a question on the ballot here in Illinois, right? We have an amendment to the Constitution that's up. Is this gonna do something for you, meaning it's gonna do something to you? If it is, you don't want that, because the government doesn't know you. Your neighbors know you, your church knows you, but government can never know you. It's a cold system, it's an institution. So when you walk in there, it should be, am I gonna be freed up to build wealth for my family? Am I gonna be freed up to educate my children in the way they should be? Am I gonna be freed up to love on my neighbors? Or is something gonna be imposed on me to where I cannot provide for myself, my family, my community?
Devin, thanks for coming, and good luck on your race. I know you're gonna win because you're the best candidate.
Thank you for having me on, and definitely good luck to you in your race. We are so appreciative of all the work that you've done out here in Homer Township, and we try to replicate it in the city. So,
And to our viewers, thank you for joining us on Up Close and Personal with me, Steve Balich. God bless.